Y'all got this new iPhone update. I have to say, it's a lot to get used to. I'm liking the little mirror glass, the bubbles, the summary. I know we're in a world where artificial intelligence, also known as AI, is taking over. But in my notifications, it is kind of nice to know. Like, I'll give y'all, I'll go a little personal, right? Say Queen PR sends me a message, it may say something along the lines of expresses love and desire to spend time with you. And my daughter sends me a message that says, indicates she loves you more and can't wait to hang out. So then you read the messages and you see the actual message. So that's something, and I know Android users out there saying, oh, but we already had that. We already had this. Look, everything better with the iPhone, baby. I will say this. We're seeing a lot of discourse about Tylenol this week after President Donald Trump said that it was causing autism. And I'll say this. Please do your own research. Listen to the experts that you trust. Listen to the doctors that you trust. That's why it's important to go to the doctor yourself and enjoy a relationship and build a relationship with them. Unfortunately, some of the people on his team I used to work with, well, one of the people, if you do enough digging, you'll be able to figure it out. And I've seen them kind of sway from one way to the other side. It's like, yeah, that's unfortunate. So when I hear all this stuff about what Tylenol is causing, I would never, ever want to disrespect people who are caring for or living with autism by saying, oh, you have it because of this. Never that. So that's my kickoff message for you to unpack. Remember, do the research. Now, coming up on this week's episode of Breaking Through Glass Ceilings with the Uncomfortable Conversations, Dolphins quarterback Tua is calling out Cam Newton. Former Heisman Trophy winner, former national champion, former NFL MVP, former NFC quarterback champion, Cam Newton. Yeah, he's calling him out, accusing him being somebody who's just a clicker of the pen. Also, Michael Porter Jr., $200 million NBA ball player, still want to go half. Also, the Baltimore Ravens, they have lost again. Stefon Diggs is in trouble, possibly, and more coming up on this week's episode of Breaking Through Glass Ceilings. Hit the beat, son! Shout out to my son Jonathan for that beat. I'm not gonna give his producer name because that's it. If he wants to do it, he'll jump in the comments section. But ladies and gentlemen, this week it's been a very interesting week. So where should we start? But actually, before we do that, let me give you some particulars. Please hit the subscribe button. But also, if you are a Beyond the Gates fan, check out me and Queen PR's podcast, Loving Them Gates. We was busy last weekend with content. We both decided, like, you know what? We're going to take some time to just kind of reset. And of course, resetting meant us enjoying each other by producing content together. So we did our weekly pod, but then we also did a couple deep dives. We did a deep dive on Doug, if you're watching or you're caught up. I'm not going to spoil it, but yeah, where did he go wrong? We also did a deep dive on Danny and Andre, which I'm pretty sure they got married in Vegas, but by accident because they were both drunk. So we talked about their relationship, and we do have an episode coming out in a couple of days, so make sure you check that out. Shout out to all the actors and producers of the show and the ones who have been engaging with the content. Also, if you don't know, follow Six Heart Media on Instagram. We do have an Instagram page. Folks, I'm going to start with Michael Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr. was on Justin LeRoy's podcast, and he talked about relationships. He talked about his upbringing, right? I thought it was very interesting. It was a good episode. I'm not going to even lie. Michael Porter Jr. is not somebody I keep tabs with. I mean, he played for the Denver Nuggets, so if you know me, you know how I feel about the Denver Nuggets. But anyway, he talked about the life he grew up with. He grew up with a 2-parent household, so he saw like he wanted to have that. He wanted to be married. But he's being careful. He's being selective. And he talked about his girlfriend, who's now his ex-girlfriend, but she wanted this apartment. And in this apartment, it was going to cost, they would say, about $3,000 a month, somewhere she wanted to live. But with her income, she couldn't really afford it. So he said, all right, well, I'll pay half and we'll go from there. But in the event that they don't live together, they wasn't living together because he said he didn't want to live with a woman until he was married. I totally respect that. This is where it gets interesting. He's making well over 200. He got a $200 million contract. So everybody said, well, why couldn't he pay for the apartment himself? She's his girlfriend. She want to live there. She want a nice place to stay. He want her to have a nice place to stay. Obviously, he going to go there. Why can't he pay it in full? Now, he said that they did break up. And upon the breakup, he told her he would still pay half because he put her in that situation, but he fulfilled the lease. So he was asked, well, why didn't you just pay for it again? Or why not give her the money? And he said, no, we're on a month-to-month basis. Because he wanted to make sure she act right. And I was like, oh, okay. So I'm sitting there listening to this. You obviously see things get clipped up. You see the quote cards. And I'm like, is that fair? He makes all this money, but he's paying just half, even while they were together. I do think, one, it kind of let him know what type of person he was dealing with. And what I mean is, he knew she wasn't there for the money because she could have said, well, shit, I ain't going to live there anyway, whatever. And they could have broken up, but she agreed to that. So clearly she's working. She just wanted to live somewhere nice. She couldn't afford it. He stepped up. He's helping her out. Now, what was kind of toxic about the whole thing when I'm listening to it was the actual relationship and how he said that he didn't see her as a wife. So he kind of waited till something small came up and he made it into a big deal to get out of it. That's the part I was like, oh, wow. But I do want to know, as far as the apartment is concerned, how do y'all feel? Do you think he is wrong for only paying for half? Or do you think he's right? Now, as someone who was raised, I was raised that, man takes care of his wife, right? And so in that aspect, I can kind of understand. She's not his wife yet. So if you made this agreement, I do respect the fact that he did carry everything out. I respect that. But maybe he shouldn't have. Like, if y'all just boyfriend and girlfriend, don't even put her in that situation to say, okay, well, I'll help you out because of the fact that they broke up. So now what's going to happen when that lease is over? Is he going to leave her? I mean, is she going to be able to get renew the lease? Or is she going to move out? But now you just kind of like teased her because she's accustomed to this lifestyle. So personally, I wouldn't even enter that agreement, especially if you wasn't even sure that she's someone that you see as your wife. So those are my 2 cents. I'd be interested to know y'all's. Tua has called out Cam Newton. Now, we all know that these athletes who have become media personalities, part of the appeal is the fact that they played the game. So when ESPN, Fox Sports, CBS, when they hire these people, it's because they played the game, they can give you that insight, right? Chiney Ogwumike is one of the best broadcasters, and she simultaneously did it while playing in the WNBA. And not only can she talk WNBA, but she can talk NBA as well. So Cam Newton is always vocal about the quarterbacks, right? That's the position he played and played it very well. Well, Tua said it's easy to go out there and, click things. And as opposed to like he's not on the field. So when he said this, I'm like, wow, well, I could see you saying that about somebody like me. Never played the quarterback position outside of a pickup game. Never played organized football, right? So I never played the quarterback position. I never had to call plays. Look, Madden 17 taught me what the X, Y, and the Z was. When we talk about Cam Newton, somebody who is a future Hall of Famer, thought that was very interesting. We're going to be talking about Cam Newton for years. When you think of Cam Newton, you put him up there with the Mount Rushmore of black quarterbacks and black running quarterbacks. And if I had to do it off the top of my head right now, Doug Williams, Cam Newton, Michael Vick, Lamar Jackson. Boom. There it is. You put Cam Newton there. If you talk about the Carolina Panthers, is he not the greatest Carolina Panther in history? Meanwhile, Tua can't stay healthy. And every time you think the Dolphins could be something decent, it's constantly trending downward. So I always think it's very interesting that a lot of times these quarterbacks or athletes, current athletes, get upset at the players for them being critical. But the reality is that's their job. Now, I do think when it gets on a little personal side, that's where you can pick up, call somebody. But when it's just about the actual, when it's just about the game, it's no need to get personal, man. Come on now. Now, let's talk about another quarterback. A quarterback who is a Super Bowl champion. And he threw an interception that led to his team losing the Super Bowl. That's Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson was benched for Jackson Dart this week, and I thought that was unfair. Now, I watched Sunday night's game against the Kansas City Chiefs, and I thought maybe, just maybe, they had a chance, right? I said, all right, maybe the Giants going to pull this out. And I was thinking about a time when Russell Wilson was in that position where I believe he would have been able to do that. Unfortunately, no. Now, a year ago, when he was with the Pittsburgh Steelers, he was a good quarterback. He was decent. But I think Russ fell victim to politics. I think Brian Daboll, the head coach of the New York Football Giants, always wanted Jackson Dart in there. He always knew Jackson was going to be his quarterback. And he just wanted to make sure he got enough reps in practice. Now, Russ didn't help by the way he was playing, but they were going against the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, as much as I can't stand the Kansas City Chiefs, and I know the Ravens played them this Sunday, until they're down and out, you always have to be accountable for them. So when I'm sitting there and I'm like, wait, Russ is benched already? It's only week 4. 3 weeks. That's absolutely not fair. Now, do I think his career is coming down to the wire, coming to an end? Yeah. And to be honest, he's just not the same guy as he was when he was with Pete Carroll. He was in Denver. He was a part of Pittsburgh getting to the playoffs. Now, they fell to the Ravens twice in like 2 times in the last 4 weeks. But, he's not no bum. I would like to see him go to another team. It's been already declared that Jackson is going to start for the remainder of this season. And I'm like, wow, okay, that's a bold statement. But from what I heard, that the coach says, I'm counting on you. I'm betting on you. I believe in you. So we shall see. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to support this podcast by wearing a t-shirt, whether it's the one that says breaking through glass ceilings or the one that says no ceilings above success, simply go to foryourwear.com. Also, you can support some of your other favorite podcast and content creators, including Those Wrestling Girls, Seahawk, and the Wrestling Club. And you can support some of your favorite independent wrestlers, including Jay Bougie, Trisha Dora, Chaz the Dawn. Shoot, all the Pure Ignorance is on there. So go on foryourwear.com, go under personalities, you'll find Brian H. Waters, and buy a t-shirt. And remember, I'll give you a shout out on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, are you in the gym every week? Are you looking to kind of keep yourself cool while you work up a nasty sweat? Well, I got the best thing for you. Cooling bands, bandanas, cooling towels, and so much more. Go to Vertical Athletics, get your favorite team in MLS or MLB, or guess what? Now they have a custom option so you can upload your own logo and you can save 10% at checkout when you enter the code Brian H. Waters. Go to vertical.com, use the code Brian H. Waters to save 10% on some of your best cooling gear. So, before we get to the Ravens, Stefon Diggs is in the news again. Now, we all know he and Cardi B are expecting a child. Cardi B's out rolling out a brand new album. Stefon Diggs, NFL player, for those who do not know, they have a child on the way. He also has another child that I believe has been born already or is on the way from another lady. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. Stefon Diggs' former associate, this is from the Jasmine brand, accuses him of drugging and making unwanted sexual advances towards him. So he, in a recent sit down, Blake Griffin sat with blogger Tasha K, and he claimed that one night Diggs drugged him, exposed himself, and put his tongue in Griffin's ear and threatened to kill him after being rejected. Griffin says the incident left him traumatized and he feared for his life. According to his account, Diggs became aggressive when his sexual advances were denied. Interview has gone viral, sparking disbelief from some people. Now, as of now, no legal action has been taken or Stefon Diggs has not discussed this. So, I'm not going to say who's right, who's wrong, but I'm going to say this about Stefon Diggs. Seems like he's always in the news for something. You have a talented football player, talented wide receiver. However, it's mighty strange that Josh Allen became a MVP quarterback once Diggs was gone. It's mighty strange that the Minnesota Vikings drafted him and then eventually he was no longer on the team and they traded him. Diggs is somebody who many people thought would be, for all intents and purposes, the best wide receiver in the league. Now, the Vikings are obviously doing okay. They have Justin Jefferson. But sometimes talent just gets in the way. I mean, talent isn't enough because ego and behaviors get in the way. I remember this was said on the radio here locally in Baltimore around the time when Diggs was about to get drafted and they were doing like pre-draft workouts. He went to the University of Maryland. So obviously it's from PG County. Obviously it's like, oh yeah, this is bring him here, bring him to Baltimore. We'll see. They said he showed up with an entourage. This is what was said on the radio. That's my source. He showed up with an entourage. And that immediately turned the Ravens off, and that's why he was not a Baltimore Raven. Now, at the time, the Ravens had Joe Flacco as a quarterback, and as you're a Ravens fan, you're like, come on now, why could we draft a talented receiver, especially somebody who went to the University of Maryland? You know, last time we did that, we had drafted a Torrey Smith who, you know, was a crucial part of that Super Bowl team. They signed Laquan Williams, who was also on that team. But it would have been nice that, okay, we get another Terp. Nope. It was best that they didn't. So, you know, like, you heard Josh Allen basically say in so many words, now it's easier because he doesn't have to force feed the ball. So I'm looking at, like, I'm like, man, this dude, is he toxic? Like, what's up with that? I don't know. Hopefully, the truth will reveal itself. I'll leave it at that. Now, before I close the show off on a negative note, I want to give a huge congratulations to the Seattle Mariners. The Seattle Mariners led by former catcher when, as I'm wearing Ken Griffey Jr.'s jersey, he was on the team. He was his teammate. Dan Wilson, who is now managing the team, has led them to their first American League West Division Championship since 2001. The team that Dan was on. That team had Ichiro Suzuki. They also won the 97 division title. Now, hopefully, I would love to see the Seattle Mariners go all the way. Anybody knows Ken Griffey Jr. is my favorite living athlete. He's the reason why I fell in love with baseball. And then to learn that he's a part of the ownership group. This was what made the Mariners my second favorite team. And then the colors, I mean, it's just amazing. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what the Mariners do. They got Edgar Martinez as a hitting advisor, Hall of Fame hitter, one of the best designated hitters ever. I mean, everybody probably give it to Big Papi, but, you know, Edgar's my GOAT as far as the DH position. Him and Harold Baines. So we're going to see. Let's get ready to rock and roll. The MLB postseason is upon us. Obviously, the New York Yankees are fighting with the Toronto Blue Jays for the American League East, but if that doesn't happen, we could be getting a Yankees-Red Sox matchup in the first round. Red Sox are going to be a wild card. You also have the New York Mets, who spent over $1 billion, and they're fighting for their lives to get in the postseason. Look, when I looked at the standings, it looked like they would play the Dodgers, the team that they fell to in the National League Championship Series last year. But we got the Padres back in there, the Cubs back in there. Man, I wish this is going to be a party that I really wish the Baltimore Orioles was a part of. And speaking of Baltimore sports, oh, how the mighty have fallen, how this year, the year 2025 has not been great so far. We all know the Orioles took two steps back, even though since they had a very horrific start and they bring in a interim manager who has a winning record. So it looks promising, but nonetheless, they will be closing out the season against the New York Yankees, and this was supposed to be the series that was to fight for the division. The Baltimore Ravens are following in their footsteps. Now, we know they lost week 1 after having a great lead against the Buffalo Bills. They lost that because they beat themselves. Then they laid the hammer on the Cleveland Browns. Came out the second half storming. They went back and forth with the Detroit Lions, and for the first time, probably since 2022, got their asses whooped. They got beat down by the Detroit Lions. I saw Ravens influencer Tripley kicker. He talked to Marlon Humphrey. He was going at Marlon Humphrey. People thought it was corny, but y'all know where I stand with athletes and podcasts. But he said it. Get off the podcast. Go out there and learn. Go out there and work. This Ravens team is reminding me of the 2007 Ravens. A team that had hopes. We thought by then Kyle Bowler was going to get it together. The defense was solid. You had Rex Ryan as the defensive coordinator. It was Brian Billick's last year. They were 5-11 that year. Or maybe they're 6-10. I believe they're 5-11. But the notable loss, the loss that I believe got Brian Billick cut, was the loss to the winless Miami Dolphins in overtime. And that was coming off a year where they had one of the best records, and they just didn't have a good offense, and that's why they lost to Peyton Manning 15-6 because they couldn't score one touchdown. Oh, they would have needed two, but they didn't allow Peyton Manning to come into Baltimore and throw not one touchdown pass. So everybody thought, okay, next year they're going to get it together. That's what this team is looking like. Losing in the divisional round, coming back out, slow start. You know, they're 1-2 right now. And danger of going 1-3 because they're playing the Kansas City Chiefs. And guess what? I'm picking them to lose. I would not touch this game with a 10-foot pole, but I'm picking them to lose. I don't have faith in the Ravens right now. I think John Harbaugh has lost the team. He doesn't hold himself accountable. He doesn't hold nothing accountable. You know, and I said this with the whole Trump stuff. I said, he said, how about y'all ask me this question? He didn't want to answer that question straight up. And now, I mean, when he said Daniel Fale is a good football player, but it doesn't look good on tape. No, he's not, you know, can't hold the lead. His first thing is, instead of saying, yes, we're going to address that. Well, if you look at how many times we had a lead, no, that's not the answer. So there needs to be a shakeup in Baltimore. You can even look at Lamar Jackson. He's frustrated. He hasn't thrown an interception this year. He's going out there. The offensive line is getting him crushed. Then he's looking at like, why are we calling certain plays? Derrick Henry's fumbling the football, but he's owning it. He's being a man about it. What is Marlon Humphrey going to do? Oh, we're having a bad day. Like I said, get off the podcast, get in the film room. I know podcasting is a hobby, but guess what? It takes research to do this. It takes a lot of work. Even if you aren't the producer, editor, and director like I am, right? When you sit there, you have to prepare. So, I said this before, you take that energy, you're doing that, place in the game. Even if you're relaxing, podcasting is work. It's not something you just sit there and, you know, yeah, some people could do, just sit there and shoot the shit with your friends. But I don't think so, because I do think he's putting in the research. Yeah, he's talking about what happened, but no, it's time to cut the shit out. You know, like I said, the 2007 Ravens, everybody had a radio show. Jonathan Ogden was on Mondays. You had the Bart Scott show. I think Terrell Suggs had a show. And I was like, wait, what are we doing? So hopefully they get it together. I'm sick of it. I'm trying not to be attached to this team, but God dang it, I do love my city, and they keep bringing me in, folks. They keep bringing me in. But that'll do it. I'm going to wrap things up. It's some Thursday night football that I'm going to watch in post-production. Y'all let me know what y'all think. I know a lot of people don't agree with me when it comes to these Ravens and athletes, active athletes with podcasts. Everybody can't be Draymond Green. You know, Draymond did it, but Draymond still went out there and won a championship. So, but that'll do it. Ladies and gentlemen, please hit the subscribe button. Remember, do not let anyone place a ceiling above your success. So long, everybody.